Among Detroit's three pony cars, Dodge's Challenger is an oversized peg that fits in an altogether differently shaped hole than do the Ford Mustang and the Chevrolet Camaro. The beefy two-door is by far the largest in its class, has the only usable back seat, and is the most powerful in 707 HP SRT Hellcat form. At least, for now. Approaching the end of a long life cycle that began in 2008, another class exclusive boast rolls, the world's first and only all-wheel drive American muscle coupe. For a segment so typically horsepower obsessed, braggadocio about the number of driven wheels is refreshingly offbeat. Even better for Dodge, it didn't need to spend a lot of money on the effort. The Challenger shares its platform with the Charger sedan, which has long offered an all-wheel drive option. Keen to cash in on its recent double-digit sales growth in AWD models, Dodge simply pillaged its parts bin for the Charger's hardware and bolted it into the Challenger to hitch yet another model to the trend. Thus was born the Challenger GT. We'd like to imagine that the baptism included cheering and tomatoes thrown at the rear drive-only Mustang and Camaro. View photos. Stop wondering why there's no V8. Ford and Chevy could lob a few tomatoes back at Dodge, given that the GT can be had only with the base Challenger's 3.6-liter V6 engine. Dodge says the aim was to offer all-wheel drive to a maximum of customers, and since it sells more six-cylinder Challengers than those powered by any of the three available V8s, the V6 got the nod. The 305 HP Pentasta V6 isn't a total letdown, even though the GT must contend with another 200 pounds or so of front drive shafts, a transfer case, and larger standard wheels. The extra poundage associated with all-wheel drive strains the 6 off the line, yet once the car is underway, the 8-speed automatic's wide ratio spread keeps the V6 huffing along. A sport mode strips the transmission of its inhibitions, loosening the requirements for initiating downshifts and holding onto lower gears longer. Drivers can swat the shift lever or use small steering wheel shift paddles to manually select ratios, but quick responses shouldn't be expected. The Challenger SRT model's stiffer suspension tuning doesn't mix with the GT's AWD bits, so the GT supports its extra weight by borrowing heavy-duty springs, dampers, and anti-roll bars from the AWD Charger Pursuit cop car. Dodge says it tuned these components for slightly softened responses to suit the Challenger's shorter wheelbase. The GT ably handles corners without dragging its door handles on the pavement, yet the ride is capital F firm. Over craggy main roads in the dead of winter, we experienced plenty of side-to-side head toss as wheels on the side closest to the road's shoulder faithfully followed each wavy undulation, pothole, and crack. The ride quality is short of harsh, however, and at least wheel motions are decently managed, while the bodacious structure and tall section tires isolate brutal impacts from the cabin. On smoother roads, the Challenger continues to be a quiet cruiser that drives big because, well, it is big. View photos. So what about that AWD? Chrysler's all-wheel drive system disconnects the secondary drive axle from the transfer case when maximum traction isn't needed. In the Challenger, as in the Charger, that means the front axle can effectively freewheel, mitigating the typical fixed AWD fuel economy penalty and leaving the GT a de facto rear drive car in most circumstances. When slippage is detected at the rear wheels or the temperature drops below a certain level, a clutch reconnects the front axle. During our drive the outside temperature never crested 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and according to the Challenger's digital gauge cluster, we never dropped out of all-wheel drive mode. Selecting the Challenger's sport mode or flicking the shift lever into its manual control gate also engages all-wheel drive. Unsurprisingly, on dry pavement the GT feels exactly like a slightly heavier rear-drive V6 Challenger. The only major tell from inside the car is a transmission tunnel bulge providing space for the transfer case that intrudes slightly into the front passenger's footwell. Plopping the GT onto a slick surface mixes up the calculus. Having once been party to an ill-advised road trip between Detroit and Chicago in a rear-drive Challenger R/T on summer tires during a blizzard, this author can speak to the vast difference all-wheel drive, and all-season rubber, makes in the Dodge's ability to accelerate on a snow-covered surface. Instead of worming its rear end sideways and delivering a minimum of forward progress, the GT and its 4-driven wheels simply grab and go. Even when the tires slip, the car noodles around as one no fishtailing before scrambling forward, even in wet, thick snow that reaches the wheel's center caps.